Indie Phone Home. Hello, my fellow YouTubers and subscribers, and welcome to my latest movie review, where today I review the fourth film in the Indiana Jones film series, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, directed by Steven Spielberg once again, and released in 2008, 19 years after The Last Crusade. Woo! Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the only Indiana Jones film I've actually seen in the cinema. Yeah, I was not actually around when the first three were released. Yeah, I remember seeing this one. It was an interesting experience, to say the least. In 1957, Indiana Jones becomes entangled in a Soviet plot to uncover the secret behind a mysterious artifact known as the Crystal Skull. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Well, I don't think it's a secret by now to say that this movie is not exactly very popular. Yeah, this Indiana Jones film is very different to the first three. So the question is, do I share the same sentiment as everybody else? Do I think this movie is terrible? Do I think it's great? In terms of where I stand, I would say Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is not great. Yeah, this is a very, very disappointing movie. I don't hate the movie. I don't think it's awful. I do think there's some fun to be had, but it's certainly not the return to the franchise that we were hoping for. Let's just say that. I think for me, the problem with this movie is that it doesn't really feel like Spielberg wanted to make it, and it really shows. I think Spielberg's even admitted in an interview that he was sort of done with Indiana Jones after The Last Crusade. You know, I mean, it was called The Last Crusade for good reason. But George Lucas approached him and was like, we could do a fourth Indiana Jones movie, and we could, you know, set it in the 50s and maybe feature some aliens. That would be kind of cool. Spielberg wasn't really hot on the idea, and for me, that's why this movie feels like a movie directed by George Lucas. This movie it's so stupid. Aliens? What? I mean, whether they're interdimensional, extraterrestrial, whatever they are, they had no place in an Indiana Jones film. They really didn't. The movie goes way too sci-fi, and it doesn't feel like it belongs in the franchise, to be honest. I'm not so keen on the design of the aliens as well. They just look very bland and boring, and we don't know much about them. Once they discover the aliens just leave for no reason. They don't explain why. The aliens just bugger off, and that's it. So that's why, for me, I can't really take this film seriously, because the whole plot is very stupid, and it's dumb, and I just find it very disengaging, to be perfectly honest. As well, Harrison Ford as Indy, he's much older in this film. He's in his 60s, and that shows. I mean, obviously, he's doing another one in his 80s, so, you know, we'll see how that works out. But as for this movie, Harrison Ford is just too old. He's too old to be doing this, and in all the action sequences, they just play it very safe. They don't go ambitious or big with the stunts, and most of the time, Indy's getting his ass handed to him. He's just getting his ass kicked, and he looks a bit pathetic, really. You can tell that Indy is just past it by this point, and part of me is like, oh, bless him. But another part of me is like, why did you do this? Why did you sign up for it? Clearly he loves the character, and that's great, but I think they left it way too late to make this movie. I honestly feel like they should have made Indiana Jones 4 in the 90s. They really should have done, when Harrison was young and fit enough to do it. Granted, the guy is fit for his age, but it's not as interesting to watch an older Indy go on this adventure. And you just think to yourself, dude, why are you even doing this, man? You should be teaching in the classroom, you know? You shouldn't be out here, you know, risking your neck. And it's kind of unrealistic how you'd survive all these massive scrapes. I mean, not that Indiana Jones was ever meant to be realistic, but it's less believable now because he's older. Let's just say that. As for the rest of the cast, we've got Shia LaBeouf in this movie as Mutt Williams. I haven't got a problem with Mutt as a character, but when they added the stupid twist that he was Indiana Jones' son, which came completely from out of nowhere, I was like, what? And the way in which that was revealed was so blasé. It was like Spielberg really didn't care about that. When Indy and Marion were sinking, And she's like, oh, Mutt's your son. And he's like, my son? Why didn't you let him finish school? They played it off as a comedy, which was a bit weird, to be honest. And I didn't feel any kind of emotional attachment to their relationship as father and son. They didn't come across that way, and even once the twist was revealed, I never felt like Indy cared about him much as a son, and vice versa. They were just two friends who knew each other. It didn't feel genuine. It wasn't like Sean Connery and Harrison Ford in the previous film. That felt like a genuine father-son connection. So they really should have thought about this twist before they actually implemented it, because to me it's so contrived, and it's a forced emotional twist. But it doesn't really work. Shia LaBeouf is not as annoying as he is in Transformers, and he's not screaming, Bumblebee! Optimus! every 2 minutes. And he does do pretty good in the action scenes, to be fair. And I think they may have potentially been grooming him to sort of take over the Indiana Jones franchise after Harrison. But still, Mutt as a character, like, why is he called Mutt? What kind of a name is that? It's ridiculous. It's the name of a dog. I have no idea. Maybe it was kind of a whole play on the we named the dog Indiana kind of thing. Maybe that's why they did that, to mirror that, but it's just weird. Mutt as a character, he's fine, but he's a bit plain, really. We've got Karen Allen returning as Marion. For no reason, Marion is in this movie. I mean, granted, I'm glad she's in it because she's one of the best things about it. But they don't do anything with her character other than make her Mutt's mother and establish that Indy and Marion are Mutt's parents. But there's none of that great chemistry, none of that great banter she had with him in the first movie, in Raiders. It's nice to see them back, and they do have a couple of good scenes together. There's not much time devoted to it. But that being said, the ending is very good when they get married. And to me, that's the kind of nice bookend of the franchise. Like, I mean, Last Crusade is the better ending. However, this movie at least has that to kind of say, look, if this is the last one, we've ended it. We've given Indy a family. He's got a wife and he's got a son. That's it. He can retire. Cate Blanchett is the villain of this film as Irina Spalko, who is on a quest for ultimate knowledge by the looks of it. I've always said that the Indiana Jones villains have been very poor by comparison to other films, and Spalko is another serviceable villain with a bare-bone motivation, although she gets a bit more screen time than some of the others in the series, so she's slightly more engaging. She is a contender, potentially, for the best villain of the series, but that's not much of a compliment when you think about the other villains and their impacts on the story. So she is one of the shining lights in this disappointing, mediocre film. Ray Winstone also plays a villain. Well, he's kind of a villain, but he's a double triple agent or something named Mac. Ray Winstone is just great. I love his personality and most of the things he's in, and, you know, when he calls him Jonesy, you alright, Jonesy? You know, I love all that. That is fantastic. I would have liked to have seen more of a dynamic with Indy and Mac. I would have actually said reveal Mac as the double agent towards the end, because the reveal would have had more impact, and you would have been like, oh shit, like, Indy's best friend has betrayed him. You know, that would have had more impact for me, and I would have felt the tension there. But Ray Winstone is good, although Mac's death really confuses me. So he runs into the temple and he gets all the gold and he wants to leave with the gold, and then Indy tries to save him, and then he's like, Jonesy, I'm gonna be alright. And then he lets himself die because he's being sucked into the UFO or whatever it is. It's kind of stupid. So I didn't think they really thought about Mac's death and the fact that they wanted it to have some impact. They wanted, I guess, to establish that through all this time, he did like Indy and he was just after the money. Again, very confusing, polarizing scene. I can't work Mac out. I mean, clearly he's meant to be kind of a free-for-all on his own side, really, on no one's side. But yeah, they should have made it clearer when he died, his true intentions. Like, in the end, we should have really found out about him as a person and where he actually stood and how he actually liked Indy, but to me it's all kind of messy. John Hurt is in this movie and he's really good as Oxley. He has to play this kind of mad character who's succumbed to the power of the skull, and that was interesting. I would have liked to see more of that. John Hurt is a terrific actor, you know, rest in peace. Jim Broadbent plays a very small role as the dean of the college. Obviously, Denholm Elliott sadly passed away before this movie. They do honour him, and they do honour Sean Connery's character as well, very briefly. But Jim Broadbent filled in nicely. I mean, he's only in 2 scenes, so don't get too excited for that. For me, the look of this film is very problematic. The sort of CGI is relied on too much, and especially in certain action scenes like the jungle chase, it's very obvious that they're filming in front of a green screen. And again, this is why I say this is a George Lucas movie. The approach they've taken to make it is quite lazy, honestly. They haven't been as ambitious with the action. And that's why I like the first three movies, because they're very ambitious action films. They always strive for the biggest spectacle you could ever want. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull almost feels very video game-esque, and that doesn't really work for me. Not to say the action isn't entertaining. There are some great action scenes, like the jungle chase particularly is a highlight. But I would have liked Indy to actually do more of the action. It feels like everybody else is trying to do more than him. Like, there's a great sword fight with Mutt and Spalko. You know, that's awesome. Indy's just driving the car for most of the scene. It's like, come on, you know, because of his age, they've had to compensate. And I don't think it works. And that's why I think they shouldn't have bothered making this film, because if you're not going to show our main protagonist getting into scrapes, then don't bother. He does get into a couple of scrapes, and there's a scene with some red ants where he fights a Russian general, and that's kind of fun, but most of the time Indy's getting his ass kicked, so you just don't really care. The direction by Steven Spielberg, sadly it's not good, and it looks dispassionate. It looks like he didn't care about it, and that's why I say it's a George Lucas movie. You know, George had the reins on this one, but Spielberg's name takes the credit, unfortunately. I mean, John Williams tries with the music. We definitely get some of the same music that we've always had, but ultimately, this movie is dull to watch, and it drags. The pace is very slow, and you don't feel excited watching it. It's a real letdown, and it's such a shame. There are some nice callbacks, like the Ark features very briefly at the beginning, but honestly, I would only watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull if I was doing a marathon of the series like I am now to prepare for Dial of Destiny. So, my final rating for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, 5 out of 10. What I will say is the fridge scene, which annoys everybody, the nuclear fridge scene, it didn't bother me as much. I mean, yeah, it's stupid, it's dumb, but so are other things in the movie, like the aliens. So there we are. But unfortunately, it's not over yet, as we do have one more Indiana Jones film yet to come, which releases in a couple of weeks. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So stay tuned for my review of that to come very soon, when Harrison bids farewell to Indiana Jones once and for all. I mean, if he does a sixth movie, I will be utterly surprised. What do you think of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please comment down below. Let me know. Please hit the like and subscribe button for more content to come in the future. And see you next time for the Dial of Destiny. So until then, I'm Pajak's Perspective. See ya.